Hey everybody, I'm Shane Ireland. Welcome to another episode of All Pipes Considered. I have a very special guest with me today, Pete Prevost. Pete, what's up, man? President of BriarWorks International.
Yeah.
Is that your title?
Yeah, I'm president.
President? Yes. Yeah, okay, perfect.
That was President Day.
Who's the VP?
I used to be it.
Yourself?
We never, yeah. I just kind of assumed more responsibility.
That's perfect. That's perfect. That's fitting. So yeah, man, good to have you.
Thank you.
It's been a little while.
Yeah, no, it's this is like, being here and getting to, visit the friends at Smoking Pipes has been great. Mm-hmm. It's been a long time since I've been here too. I mean, you guys have been out to see me way more than I've been out here.
Yeah, well, we don't have a pipe show. You have a pipe show.
Yeah.
Like, shameless plug for the Muletown Pipe Show. Do you guys have dates?
Yes.
Let's do it.
So it's the weekend of March, like 14th, 15th, 16th, that weekend. Yeah, perfect. So we'll probably at some point, a little bit later in the fall, we're gonna actually put
official
out
announcement and stuff.
Tickets for sale, all that stuff, tables.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's a great show, man.
It's such
as
a great show.
You've been every year.
Every year.
It's grown into just this. It's kind of more like the party show.
Yeah.
And because we've got the bar and everything, so it's such a fun hang.
And Columbia is such a cool town.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really awesome place to have a show because not as a criticism of other shows necessarily, but it's the only show that I can think of that is in a place where everybody stays really close by and kind of just walks over, and it's not in a convention hall or any of that kind of stuff. It's a totally different vibe. Well,
as we all know, from doing the pipe shows for years, most pipe shows, while the ballroom and all that stuff is really nice, the after the show thing it gets a little broken up. It gets a little weird because you might have a couple of those spots or a smoking tent or something to go hang.
Yeah.
But everybody kind of just kind of ventures off into their own thing.
Yeah.
Because there's not an on-site spot per se that's the spot to hang out. That has booze,
drinks, and darts, lounge.
And so having our lounge that's already open 7 days a week, late at night, anyways, is a perfect little it's gathering spot after the show. I feel like.
So let's get into some pipe stuff. And on that note about the show and the lounge, take us back to the beginning real quick in the inception of BriarWorks and what changed from the original shop to the new location, all that stuff.
Yeah. So we first started up in Nashville proper. That was back in 2013, and it was kind of really I was at that time I was still a touring musician coming off the road, looking to do something else, and I had been
making artisan pipes,
and working out of the shop with Todd Johnson, and so when I was home from the road, I would go over there and make pipes, and it was actually Todd. It was really his sort of brainchild about the idea of would love to start a factory, and
American-made
production. And so, started working with him on that. It was actually a perfect opportunity for me to get off the road, be home with family more, and then so we just kind of dove in and got some other couple investors involved, and started BriarWorks up in Nashville. And then so we went for a few years. I think it was about 3 years that we were up there in Nashville, and at that point, it was a little bit different. What BriarWorks was our factory name, but we had Icarus and Neptune, and a couple other brands that we had it launched. We didn't have a BriarWorks branded pipe at the time, and so during that time, it was an interesting thing how it kind of came about, but we started thinking we should do a classic shaped line. So that's how the BriarWorks sort of name got introduced to the actual pipe branding.
Yeah.
And then we did that, and then eventually sort of started bringing things over and kind of saying let's just what we should be.
You realized that was your brand. Yeah, you realized that was your brand.
Yeah, that was our brand. It wasn't just the factory name, and it worked really well. During that time is when we also got involved with Moonshine pipes, because at that time there was a carver up in Virginia, Jonathan, that was making handmaids under the brand Moonshine, and was starting to really get into the idea of having some factory production made of Moonshine. And so he actually reached out to me and said, would you guys be willing to do a factory version of Moonshine, and you guys would produce the full thing and they're in-house, and then I would basically sell them directly through my website. And so that was like, I think also like around 2015, 2016, somewhere in there, we started doing that. And then like after we did that for a couple years, it kind of was one of those things where like Jonathan decided to step back and move on to something else, and like didn't really know what he wanted to do with the brand. So we ended up buying it and taking it over.
Yeah.
And it made perfect sense. Like people, I think, don't really understand how like particularly connected we were to those shapes anyways. Because what happened was like initially Jonathan was like, hey, you should, make, this shape or whatever. And we ended up getting, me to like sort of like design out some shapes and all that. So yeah, we ended up having both brands there, but then like BriarWorks, we ended up like moving down to Columbia, because that was in 2017 we started looking, and in 18 we officially moved.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like it just was like such a cool little city.
Yeah.
And like I loved like the idea of like kind of getting us out of Nashville. Plus I really wanted to open like the retail store and lounge. And like it just didn't make sense in Nashville. Nashville's got plenty of like cool like lounges and stuff.
Of course.
And,
and the area that you guys were in was just a little more of an industrial area.
For sure.
Of course. Yeah.
That location would not have worked at all.
No. You would have had to do something with a build out and everything else.
Yeah.
But.
And so we ended up like moving it to Columbia because of the idea of having like our own retail space and lounge. And really I was already like thinking about doing Muletown.
Yeah.
Not like by name, but like I was like, we should do our own pipe show.
That's amazing.
So we wanted to get like in a space where we could have our own pipe show someday.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it was that was sort of like how we got to where we were. And at that point when we had moved to Columbia, like at that point Todd had kind of gone back to like really just focusing on handmade pipes. And so like at that point I was like, I'd taken over running the company on the day-to-day level. And so we moved down there, and that's where we've been.
That's it. So BriarWorks as a brand, and the series that you are producing under the BriarWorks brand that's been going on for a while now, like what would you say if you had to summarize the approach to the BriarWorks as a brand? What would it be?
I think it's about good, solid, classic shapes is definitely like the foundation of BriarWorks. It's like good examples of just iconic shapes. But I think the summary of BriarWorks is a blend of like your classic shape, maybe even like some of our lines, like a little bit more of a unique artisan shape, but like our main line is the classic line.
And when you say the artisan shape, you're referring to the original series.
Yeah, the original series, by, or the signature, like
signature lines.
So like it's a kind of a two-sided thing. It's like good classic shapes, but then like the process and how we finish it is very similar to like our artisan process. Unlike some other factories, like, we're made up of like the only guys making pipes are full handmade pipe makers
that have been doing it for years.
And so although like a lot of factories, we do start like our bowls for the factory pipes on a machine. And we rough out the shape and we drill it and everything.
Of course.
At that point though, like it's like you get the machine part, and then at that point it gets handed off to one pipe maker.
Right.
And then they fit it to a stem. They sand it, they maybe sandblast it or make it a smooth. They do the whole finishing process, even the bowl coating and the stamping.
Everything
is done by like one pipe maker.
And it's not an assembly line.
And the process, and even like the different like, stains that we use, or the finishing like process, it's all the same exact process, almost exactly to how we would do with like a handmade pipe. It's just that, it's more of a serially produced pipe. It's run on a machine. It's not like, a completely one-of-a-kind shape or anything like that, but it's affordable and it's practical. And that's the thing, is like I want it to be good quality, and but I also want it to have that signature look of it's made by the guys at BriarWorks, and it's got that artisan look to it.
And that's the thing, it does. Like, yes, you can find classic shapes like this going back over a century to other producers, but yeah, when I think of BriarWorks, I think of like, again, impeccable classic shapes, but the aesthetic overall, and I think part of this is like you guys offer a lot of different stem choices, a lot of colorful options, and the finishes, they all look very modern.
Yeah.
Like they all look very modern. So it's this really cool juxtaposition of like the true to the design language started by the Anglo-French sort of school, but like modernized in terms of finish and like quality and color combinations and all that.
Yeah.
Like there's just nothing else like it in the world.
No, and like I do love that about, especially like some of our like smooth finishes, like without even knowing the brand, you can spot it. You know, if you really follow pipes and you see like the contrast of like how our smooths look, and like you see that it's kind of more of a classic traditional looking shape though. Yeah, you're like, oh, that
has to be made by those guys. Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, just out of curiosity, before we move on, what's your favorite BriarWorks classic model?
Okay, like definitely I've always leaned towards like I like a lot of straight classics.
And not necessarily for smoking yourself, but like just in general.
Oh yeah, just even like the look of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because like for smoking, like I'll do both. For smoking, I would say like honestly, I love like we've got a little like straight bulldog that I love. I also love like just our straight apple. Yeah. Like I love that shape. Yep, right there. That straight apple is definitely like, and I have like a smooth one that I made for myself as the prototype that I smoke all the time. I have it on this trip. With me.
Okay.
And so I love that pipe. Aesthetically, like for like the look of the pipe. Yeah. Like I love the C13.
The C13 is great.
Like because it actually is a scaled down version of our C12, like larger billiard. But like I love a good like petite shape and a classic. And it's funny how just like a little bit longer stem, as opposed to the C12, and like a little bit more of a bend to it, it changes it from like almost like an English classic to a French classic.
Yeah, it does.
And that definitely has like a little bit more of like a French classic look to it just because of that.
Perfect size too.
Yeah, I love that shape.
I do too. If I recall correctly, the C81, was that one designed by Bill?
Actually, no, that was one of mine.
That was yours?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep, it was one of mine that I actually did like hand shaped out, and then we actually used that as the model for it. Yeah. And it became like one of our classics. But I bet you're thinking of the C91, which is the bent apple.
That's right.
And that one is a Bill.
That one is Bill Shalosky.
That one's definitely Bill, and you can tell
too. Yeah, you can tell too. Sure. That's kind of fun. But then again, I will also say that like outside of my normal smoking preferences, the C111 I think is like I think the 101 and the 111 are shapes that like were a lot more common in like English shape charts back in the day, but not a lot of people produce those shapes now. Yeah,
and in fact, that one, the C111, the Bull Moose, is one that like at the time, we and all of us like as carvers, even at the shop, we obviously are like pipe collectors too. So a lot of us have had like various like examples of classic pipes over the years, and like. That one was like one of those ones that like it used to be such a popular shape, but like we all would see like people on the forums and stuff talking about like
the old GVDs, the old Kamoys,
and like looking for that, and I was like, that's interesting. Like I remember having conversations about it and with the guys, and like how like it's just not like being produced much anymore for whatever reason, and so we ended up doing that shape, and I feel like in some ways, even though like of course we can't take credit for the original design, that's like an old like Kamoys, French thing, but like it is one of those things that like I feel like when we launched it, it sort of like kind of brought it back to life.
It felt fresh,
and like
when you can only ever find it on the estate
and even
market.
Started like with the other factories even kind of coming back around a little bit. And I thought that was really cool because I'm like, we're just this like small little pipe factory, and the fact that like we actually had like a little bit of an influence on something, like it was cool. It felt like it actually meant something to us. I was like, that's kind of neat that like we brought this like kind of shape a little bit back to life that had kind of just like gotten pushed off to the side. A little
obscure,
So it was really neat.
Super rad. So you guys took complete control of Moonshine around 2017.
Yeah, I think it was that.
Moonshine is, I think one of the more interesting serially produced pipe brands that we've seen in like the last 10 years. And the reason I say that is because most brands either have been around forever, way longer than we have been in this business, and been through many, many, many evolutions and iterations over the years, or the approach is totally different. You know what I mean? You're talking about small workshops that might have a handful of carvers, but that it's not really like a true serial production of pipes. And the other thing about Moonshine that I find so interesting is the design language, and I want to talk about that a little bit. So, again, I asked you the question about BriarWorks, but if you had to explain Moonshine, or if you had to summarize Moonshine as a brand, like what would you say?
So, like, definitely a modern take on classics. Like very modern.
Very modern.
Playful. Like it's just a little more tongue in cheek. Like it's more fun. It's not as like traditional. And then like there's a little bit of like, I mean it's a little bit disjointed, but there's definitely a little bit more of a cohesive like storyline with it, you know, in terms of like the names and the branding and all of that.
And I feel like you guys have really, and this is hard to do, and this is the point I was trying to get to, I feel like you guys have really honed in on a unique design language. And when most pipes, particularly, you know, factory-made, serially produced pipes, are still, after like 150 years or more, nearly 200 years, still influenced so much by the like original like briar pipe designs from France and England back in the day. There's not a lot of like new, fresh design language going on there. I mean, in handmade pipes we see that a little bit, but it's usually in a fanciful way that like is literally impossible to produce in a factory setting. Or nearly impossible. I guess you guys have done it a couple times. Well, maybe that's another topic. But yeah, so that's one thing that I appreciate about Moonshine is that like, yes, there's recognizable design elements. But yeah, almost all of it is like a super fresh take on either stuff that's never existed or stuff that has existed in very, very different iterations.
And like, I mean, for example, I mean, this is the long stem version of the Devil Ant shape, but there you go. But the Devil Ant shape, as we all know, like that started getting popular because of the Hatfield McCoy series and like Kevin Costner. And there was starting to be a lot of like, you know, people's iterations of that and versions, and like, when we decided, you know, with Jonathan to do a Devil Ant shape, I definitely like was like, okay, I want to get this as close as I can to what you see him smoking on like the front porch of the picture everybody references. And so definitely looked at a lot of pictures of that, tried to zoom in and be like, okay, I like try to get that size about right and the proportions. And so that one was one that like took off immediately. I mean, it was huge.
Is it still one of the most popular?
Definitely. It's still very popular. And another one too, though, that I think is really unique because no one was doing. I think the Devil Dog is really unique because it's that combination of like a Rhodesian and like a bulldog, but with that cant of the Devil Ants and the way that it looks with like a little bit of the cutty kind of look to it. And I think that's a really cool, unique shape.
It is.
That was kind of original to like the Moonshine lineup.
Absolutely.
And then obviously, you know, we've got like the Stoker, which is the shorter version of our Patriot poker. But like, again, I think that Moonshine has been really good for, I guess, like pushing the boundaries a little bit.
And I feel like you guys have been able to successfully integrate like some of the design elements that we think of with like American artisan carvers. Like some of the buzzwords, if you'll forgive me, that get thrown around when you're talking about American artisan-made pipes is like these muscular aesthetics, like the sort of industrial design elements to them. You know, some exaggerated proportions and stuff, but not in the same way that like the neoclassic Italians did it. I mean, the dome saddle, like that's like a super like with its origins in like Danish pipe making, like post Sixten Iversen, and like you guys produce a number of shapes that have dome saddles.
On, like
the
factory pipe. Factory pipe is definitely like it's unique.
It's super unique. Was the first one the pot still?
In the Moonshine lineup, for sure. And we did, you know, with the Icarus Neptune stuff, we did some dome saddle stuff, but like
the horn and a few others.
I think it was probably the pot still. It had to have been. We might have done it with that Ben Egg, the MS07.
A couple of times.
I think we did that. We've done different versions of that. We used to do it. Actually, no. Back then, we did more of a flared saddle. We've switched to the dome saddle with the bent egg. So we've actually been doing that more
lately.
It does look really good with
and see, that's the kind of thing that's cool too, is like the flexibility. The flexibility that you guys have, and because these are all made one by one, like if you find one of these shapes that you like, you have different stem options, not just color, but like shapes of the saddle and all that stuff, and finishes to collect. But yeah, the pot still, I think, was like another extremely unique and like distinctively American design.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was one of yours as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the Cannonball.
The Cannonball
Yeah.
is like, that was like, I think, a game changer for Moonshine.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Cannonball was like, we didn't have at that point any BriarWorks Classics that were like very large or like a bigger bowl and muscular like that. Definitely didn't have anything in Moonshine. Moonshine was more known for like compact and petite and smaller.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
I think you weren't even doing the long stem anses at that point.
No, we weren't. Yeah, so everything was more like compact and known for that. So like when we launched the Cannonball, and that was like one that I designed out, it just took off, man.
Yeah.
It's the biggest selling Moonshine shape, like, for sure.
That doesn't surprise me.
And it's just one of those ones that when you look at it, it has that like modern artisan look to it, but like also kind of nods to like classic, like Peterson, like even like like I feel like
muscular transition.
Yeah,
like
and but then it's just one of those ones that just looks like it has like an iconic look to it now, which I think is really cool.
It
and
is.
I don't know. I think we just wanted to introduce something that was bent and larger for that crowd.
Yeah.
And like it really took off.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was going to be like the biggest thing we'd ever done for Moonshine.
Right.
But it has been.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that is another pipe that, like, from across the room, even just like black sandblast, black stem, it looks super modern.
Yeah.
Compared to like most other serially produced pipes. Yeah.
And then obviously we did the grape shot,
yeah,
which is the latest thing, and that was like, again, bringing it back to like some of the like more compact, like petite, side of Moonshine. Like we had actually a collector of our pipes and a customer in at the Chicago show, come up to us and tell us like, you guys ever thought about doing like a small version of this and calling it like a grape shot? And like, so it was.
Now we have,
And we had talked about doing a smaller version. Never thought about using the grape shot reference,
which is amazing,
in conjunction with Cannonball. And so it was like, and I'm gonna send you the first one we make, and I did.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I sent him one because like I had to give him props for that. And even when we like put out the marketing for it, like when we initially launched it, we definitely talked about like him helping us with that idea and like.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love that you guys are able to continue to release new models, not just in BriarWorks, but Moonshine specifically, that do have that like. Yeah. I think that was a lot of. I think there's a lot of pipe smokers out there over the last like 10 years, maybe a little bit more, that had gotten into the hobby at a time where like this sort of renaissance of like pipes and pipe making and tobacco was like picking back up.
Yeah.
Like, okay, for the super quick like history piece of this, in the face of the cigar boom, like particularly in the 90s and up until the early 2000s, like cigars had gained so much popularity in premium tobacco that pipes weren't getting a ton of love and a ton of innovation. And we've seen that change dramatically over the past 2 decades. And I think Moonshine's been a really interesting part of that, because I think we can absolutely credit Moonshine with bringing a lot of new smokers to the hobby, especially in the mid-2010s and like when it was early. Like, I mean, there was a lot of people that got into this because they saw something fresh.
I think that's pretty. I appreciate you saying that, but like, I think you are right.
It's true.
I do think that this brand has definitely like. It just has a different reach, It's got a different a reach that like. You've got your traditional smokers and classic pipe smokers, but like. Yeah, like I think again, crediting Jonathan with the early like marketing of it and everything. He was really good at driving that and bringing in people, and then we kind of continued that on and continued to grow like more shapes into the brand and everything like that. But it has like a more modern and youthful, like sort of like branding to it that is a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it did. Probably bring a lot of people into the hobby.
It did bring a lot of people into the hobby, and I think the most important part is that if you're drawn to Moonshine because of the design language, because of the fresh look, because it's like novel shapes that you don't really find anywhere else, like the quality is also such that like the people that get into it, the people that come into the hobby through a pipe like Moonshine will stay in the hobby. Yeah. Because the quality is there. They're going to get a good smoke right out. Like honestly, for those of us that started with like basket pipes and stuff like that, like you're getting so much better.
A lot of people drop out of pipes immediately because they have such a horrible experience.
They have a horrible experience with these like really cheap pipes that you find in shops that we call basket pipes. Like, and I think that Moonshine, there's a lot of, we owe a lot to the brand as a hobby, because it has been able to like ring in and retain a lot of people that may not otherwise have been stoked about like whatever sort of classic pipe that they saw.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I'm curious because it's been a little while since the grape shot. Like, what do you guys have new coming? Anything?
I got a little tease.
Okay.
I'm smoking something.
Are you?
Actually, yeah, it's funny. So this is one that I actually made for myself.
I've seen you smoke that pipe before.
I've been smoking this for a few years now.
Yeah.
I've had this pipe for a few years that I've just been smoking, and I take it to shows, I think everywhere. And people often will ask me like, oh, what is that? And I'm like, well, it's like one I kind of like made like from like our factory stuff and put together, and it's just a little
hodgepodge.
petite straight billiard.
Yeah.
Like it's just like my size, my style. Mm-hmm. And so, anyways, I've been smoking it, and people have mentioned that often. They're like, man, I wish you guys would make that like a factory pipe because I want one. Like it's really cool. And so actually, the next Moonshine that we're actually working on and getting ready to start producing and put out there is going to be this shape.
Yeah.
And it's a little petite straight billiard, and it's going to be called the Moonshine Hillbilly.
That's amazing.
So yeah, the Moonshine Hillbilly is coming very soon.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Let me see that thing real quick. I got to see it again.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
The proportions are so cool.
It's a great. Like I said, I take that pipe
perfect size
everywhere.
Yeah, perfect size.
I always have it when I'm traveling, like all the time. So
awesome.
Yeah, it's a great little size.
I need to get a Hillbilly too.
Yeah, you're gonna get one.
Find me a cross grain. Let me get a cross grain. Yeah, for sure.
I will.
Sick.
Yep. So yeah, there you go.
The Hillbilly.
I'm smoking it.
Any idea approximately when we might see that?
Oh yeah, like pretty soon.
Pretty soon.
Yeah, like I don't know when you guys will even launch this video, but like it might be coming out right about the same time.
Yeah, awesome. Sure. Sick.
Yeah. So it might be if you're watching this video, like maybe look out there and search for the
exactly. Find the Hillbilly.
Yep. So
I mean, find the Hillbilly. Sounds like
it's too
like a really wild Hasbro game.
Let me tell you a quick story about the name too. That's kind of funny. Is like because the guys I think at the shop they love to make fun of me for this. Like it's not really like so much that they're making fun of me, but they always will comment on like sometimes when I stumble upon an idea. And I just like light up, and I like get really excited about it. Yeah. And so like many times Micah and Bill and everybody's just kind of like kind of been like, I love how you just like you get this twinkle in your eye and you're excited. So that happened with this.
Hillbilly's perfect.
I'm talking to Bill at the shop, and I'm like, like, dude, I think we should produce this, blah blah blah. Like I don't know if it should be like a classic or a Moonshine, but I think it should be a Moonshine because it's like we don't have like a lot of like. Just like straight, like almost like classic shapes.
It's the first billiard in the Moonshine line, isn't it?
Right, for us, like I think maybe Jonathan may have done some with that, but like for Moonshine, and so we have a lot of like bent pipes or a little bit of a curve, and even the ones that are all straight, they're all canted. There's not like one that's vertical like this, and so we were discussing it. And saying, you know what, it should definitely be a Moonshine. That makes the most sense. It should be a Moonshine. And then I go, Moonshine Hillbilly. It's a little petite billiard. And Bill was like, yes, that's it. That is absolutely it. I got so excited. So, yeah, anyways.
I'm so excited about it, too. It's going to be awesome. Pete, thank you so much for coming. Good to see you, brother.
So good to see you.
Keep doing what you guys are doing. For everybody out there, mark your calendars around March 14th, 15th, 2025. Is it going to be 2025 already? Jeez.
Yeah, we're almost there.
That's crazy. Muletown Pipe Show, Columbia, Tennessee. You cannot miss it. If you do one pipe show all year, that's the one. Come out and see us.
It's going to be a great time. Yeah. Like we've got... lots of other carvers that'll be there. Like lots of, if you're a collector, lots of great stuff to look at if you want to add to your collection. And then like obviously we'll have like all of our stuff, and then like it's
good food, good drinks.
It's a great
time. So the show for many years has been like super close to my birthday. It's my birthday this year.
Oh yeah. No way.
We're gonna go hard. We'll go super hard.
Come on. Shane said it.
See you, everybody.
See ya.